I'm Chris Gibney, I'm the Business Development Director for WSP, and one of the things I've been doing over the last 18 months is to roll out the Future Ready programme within our highways business. The reason I'm talking about Future Ready today is because, in a sense, it is our response to the challenge of resilience. It's our response to the challenge of an industry which is changing quite rapidly, which the constraints on our business are changing and are only likely to accelerate. I'm actually not going to spend a lot of time talking about specific challenges and specific solutions. The reality is, I think that however many experts we have in controlled and autonomous vehicles or in pavement design or in biophilic design or anything else you might like, the reality is we need to come at this from a point of view of some humility. That investing our time and effort in any one particular solution is unlikely to yield the sort of radical and broad changes that the industry needs, and also will probably not deliver the kinds of productivity and innovation improvements that our communities are going to need from us in the future. So we need to recognise that we're dealing with an uncertain future, which constraints in the industry are likely to change in ways that are difficult to foresee, albeit not impossible, hopefully. So what we need, I think, is a process, a dynamic system, which will future-proof our projects today, designing for the future, but also react and align to an industry which is changing, and to make sure that we are dealing with those issues as they arise. And what we in WSP have developed is Future Ready. It's a programme of institutional and cultural change within the company. It's fundamental to our business planning. We don't see it as a luxury or an add-on. It's sponsored by our global COO, and it's managed operationally throughout our business. It's a mandatory part of our business. So yeah, it's a programme of cultural change, but it's backed up with a toolkit that our designers and project managers use to make sure that all of our projects are future-proofed against a range of different elements, which I'll go through with you, but also that our services are also looking ahead to the future challenges that are coming downstream. The programme divides the Future Ready challenge into 4 main themes, those of climate, of society, of technology and of resources. So we don't really have time to go into every aspect of the programme, but what I will do is give you a bit of background to the programme, why we came at the solution that we did, and then take you through the toolkit a little bit, how we actually use it in anger on our projects and our services. This is the 4x3 grid. Sort of one thing to say about this is that perhaps it's a little bit misleading. It looks quite neat and tidy, whereas in reality the issues are interconnected and a bit messy and subject to change. But I don't really apologise for that, actually, because one of the things in going around the country and talking to people about Future Ready clients and partners and our own internal staff is that a big part of the problem of resilience is that it seems insurmountable. There's so many different issues coming that are going to change the way we work. And actually, sometimes it's important to give people a little bit of comfort, to show them something that looks kind of boxed off and manageable. So it's almost an emotionally important response to the problem of resilience is not to stick your head in the sand, to give yourself a system of managing it. But these are the 4 different themes. Within climate, some of the stuff that Steve's already talked about, obviously heavier rain, higher temperatures, higher peak temperatures and a higher frequency of extreme events. You know, these are things that we probably all have to deal with already in our different organisations, but which are only going to be changing and becoming more acute in the future. Just to illustrate some of the things that are going on there, there's a couple of diagrams. These are different temperature change scenarios in the UK, all of which look a bit hairy if you ask me. And this one here is this is a waterfall diagram showing where we are now in terms of our carbon footprint across the UK and where we need to be according to the government by 2030. So a couple of takeaways there. Transport is the biggest polluter at the moment, and actually it has a very, very big challenge. It's come down by nearly half of its carbon footprint by 2030. So that kind of emphasises the kind of challenge that we collectively have. In society, we're sort of talking about demographics and behaviour and the way that that's going to be changing over the time. The fact that young people are driving less and old people are driving more. The fact that we've got more old people as well, and what that means about how we design our infrastructure for them. The fact that one-person households are the fastest growing type of homes. So what does that mean about how we design our infrastructure as well? And then terror risk and crime. I mean, it says terror there, and obviously that's something that is a reality in particularly high prominent places. But we're sat here in London today. I would argue that the biggest crime issue we have at the moment is knife crime. This is something that our school children and our kids are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis in London. So how do we address that challenge within designing roads and infrastructure? How do we engage with them? Just a couple of illustrative graphs on that as well. This is projected change in demography over the next, well, not quite 10 years because it was started in 2016, but you can see that this grey column here is over 65s. So that actually represents quite a significant change in our customer base, if you like, or our end users, or whatever you call them. So that does imply some significant design challenges for us. And this one here is an interesting one as well. I think in designing roads, we're probably quite used to dealing with issues of vision and hearing and mobility, but actually lots of other types of impairment which people are reporting increasingly, such as stamina and breathing, dexterity, and mental health. So we're probably a bit behind on that in terms of how we integrate that into our designs and planning. So that's something we need to look at in the future and be aware of now. Technology is kind of the sexiest stuff. I guess it's what people think about when you talk about future ready. It's the controlled and autonomous vehicles, it's electric vehicles, it's CCTV and other kinds of sensing equipment and smart assets which will be giving us more data than we can ever want, which then pose the challenge of what do we do with that data, how do we actually use it properly and exploit it to better plan, program, design and maintain our assets. And also modular build will come. This is something that's a reality for us in the industry already, but is increasingly important and has massive productivity benefits. Resources is about some facts of life, really. The fact that materials extraction is becoming more expensive, so that places on us a sort of commercial imperative to reuse and recycle more and more and more, which is obviously links in some of the climate-related issues as well. Also biodiversity, where we're doing highways projects, we're quite often doing these in sensitive ecologies and environments. So we have a duty, I think, to enhance and protect that ecology and to view biodiversity as a national asset, which needs to be protected in all the other ways that we do with other things. And then, just to illustrate the resources side of it as well, another part of it is the changing dynamic in energy prices. Very, very important for our industry. The fact that on a whole, fossil fuels are going to be more expensive, and renewable energy will become less expensive as their technologies and the markets mature. So that really changes what potential we've got to do in our projects. You know, we can get involved in energy generation, potentially, and how we use it in electric vehicles and all of that stuff. So that is the breadth and depth and shape of the challenge of resilience as we see it at the moment. Like I say, although it looks fixed, it's not. This will change and iterate over time. Some of these things will perhaps become less important than we think they are now, and other things will come in and really disrupt our industry. But it's really important to try and get a handle on it and to address this challenge to our design teams. So this is the basis of it. In terms of further background, so we've got these disruptive changes. What are we going to do about it? We need to do something. One of the implications is that just using current codes and design practices isn't going to cut it. We can be designing and specifying stuff right now, but in 15 years' time, it probably isn't going to be performing at the same level that we need it to in terms of the roads are melting, perhaps, or simply that it's not providing the right kind of amenity because our users have changed. So we need to start planning for that now. Otherwise, the other implication is that we just risk that our infrastructure spending is being wasted. From a WSP point of view as well, we have to think about the type of things that we do, the stuff that we design and the kind of skills that we have. You know, just an example, we have people who are citing and specifying and designing gantries for motorway signs. Well, it's very likely that within 10 to 15 years, those will be completely redundant because the network will communicate so seamlessly with smartphones in people's cars and their sat-navs, and the behaviour has changed so much, arguably it already has, that actually road signs, you know, we just don't need them anymore, and that's just distraction, expensive distraction. So we have to think about what we do with those people. You know, we need to make sure that they've got the skills which are going to be valuable in the future, and that we don't find that we've got obsolete parts of our business. And I think that's probably true for everyone's organisations. The corollary to that is that lots of opportunities are presented to us. I think as a whole, there's allegations that there's a productivity crisis in the UK, and that's hard to argue when you look at how we perform in sort of productivity per capita with some of our peer economies, and that applies equally to transport. I think clearly the challenge has been laid down to us over the next 10 years that large productivity and innovation improvements have to come. So a lot of the solutions to these challenges will hopefully provide some of those gains. Something Steve talked about a bit as well, but we just don't think a piecemeal approach will work. Things are too uncertain. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, other kinds of cliches, but it's true, I think. The issues are too interrelated, too uncertain. We must deal with them together in a holistic way in order to not miss any opportunities to get these gains. So yeah, what to do about it? Again, it can seem a bit overwhelming. We need to have a way of dealing with it dynamically, which is manageable within our business, which is cost effective to do, but which delivers results. So now I'm just going to take you through some of the steps that we've done in the toolkit that we've used to try and do this. One of the first things to do, and which I recommend that anybody should do when they're starting with this, is to take stock of the work you're doing already. We didn't invent any of these issues just because we came up with the phrase future ready. We're already doing a bunch of stuff about all of these issues. We went around all our offices, all our disciplines, and we asked people to put forward the projects they had done which address some of those issues. It's really, really important for a number of reasons. One, it's an important way of sharing knowledge. Subsequently, we're going to go on and ask our designers and project managers to, on all of their projects, address these issues. So we don't want them to be doing it from first principles or from scratch. We want them to have this source of information, this library of future-ready work, which they can then import into their projects and solve those problems more quickly. The other interesting thing about it is when we did it in the highways business, which is where I work, we sort of got all our case studies back from all the teams. We mapped them onto the different future-ready themes, and you can get a kind of a view of how you're doing as a business. You know, are you happy with that array of stuff that you're actually working on at the moment? Within highways, we obviously do loads of stuff with climate because we do drainage and pavement and things like that. Quite a lot with materials and modular build, and maybe less stuff on society. Well, is that okay? Do we accept that as the right sort of things that a highway team should be doing? Maybe not. Maybe we need to invest there. So it's an interesting process and a really necessary one. This is the sort of key design workshop tool that we use. It's a design audit of the type that you might have done or you might have in your own organisations, but it's specifically focused on future-ready themes. It puts the challenge to all of our designers and project managers: how is your project dealing with the issue of heavier rainfall? How is your project dealing with the way that crime is going to be changing in the next 10, 15 years? How is your project going to make retrofitting CAV technology easier? Frankly, when I first looked at this, I was a bit dubious about doing a checklist. I don't really like processes. My boss will probably attest to that. And I didn't want it to be another form. But actually, please do see past that. I've now moderated 4 or 5 of these sessions, and they're absolutely fantastic. We have the best way to do it is get people from different disciplines. So we've done it on some multidisciplinary projects where we've had rail, property, environment, structures and highways all working together, and people don't stay in their box. That's a great thing. It's a really good way of knowledge sharing and breaking down some of those silos that you were talking about. So I'm a real convert to this. They're a really great way to workshop and future-proof your projects. And we're going to be doing this on all of our projects now within 2019. So irrespective of whether clients want it or not, we're doing this. Next one, which is on a similar theme insofar as it's addressing those future-ready issues on projects and services, is our innovation labs. Now, this is similar in that sense, but it's much, much wider in terms of participation. We do them as lunchtime webinars, and we put forward projects, in this case, projects in London, very near to where we are now in Old Street. So we're working with Morgan Sindall and TfL to radically change that junction. So we present this project to 200 or 300 WSP people from across disciplines and across geographies, and we ask for their input on how the project can be enhanced in terms of these future-ready themes. And the upshot of that, we use Menti on this, which you'll all be doing a bit later, and it's a really good system. The upshot of this is we get 600 or 700 ideas from around the world and from different disciplines on how to make Old Street more future-ready in a variety of these different ways. You can see it's all sort of split out, and we ask specific questions. That's fantastic. It's very cheap. People do it in lunchtimes for CPD, so there's basically no cost for it for us or for our clients. But it's a great way of making sure you don't miss out any opportunity to share knowledge and get those ideas into your project. And also it's a good way of generating new ones because it's anonymised. People don't have to sort of stand behind their idea. They can just send it out into the ether and then it flows down. So that's really good. I mean, obviously it does mean that a lot of the ideas aren't that good and a lot of them won't be practicable or have the right sort of value to the project. But once you whittle it down, you get probably 10 or 15 which are really great ideas, and you can put it into your projects, and it's just a very efficient way of doing it. It's quite lean. The last part of it that I'm going to talk to you about, but arguably the most important, is research and development attached to Future Ready. This came about when we were implementing the programme within our highways business, and I think as highways engineers we probably cast a more cynical eye over these things than maybe some other disciplines. But we liked it. We saw the grid and we thought, yeah, that all looks fine. But actually we don't understand some of those issues that well, to be perfectly honest. We get the climate stuff. There's so much data on that. The evidence base is there. But other areas, if we're going to be going to our clients and making recommendations to them, and that they sometimes have to spend money on this stuff, Well, we need to have a very persuasive argument. We need to be clear ourselves that we understand the evidence base. So we started an R&D program, which very, very quickly allows ideas from our technical teams to be approved, enhanced, supported and funded, and progress from there. So we're already undergoing, we've already started some R&D projects. So it's an exciting program. The objectives of it, as I said, are to get underneath these issues and look at the evidence base and make sure we're happy that we can be very objective about them and make the right recommendations. We don't know all things, we're not omniscient, and we're not the experts in everything, but we want to know more, so that's what we'll do. The other advantage is that for our staff it's fantastic. Typically they do want to get involved in cutting edge projects, which are not always available within existing projects that we have that are funded, but if we invest a little bit of time and money and our resources in R&D projects, they get to work at that cutting edge, and it's great for their development. This touches on the collaboration with the private sector. All of our R&D projects, we want to be collaborative in that way. We want to engage with other sectors. We want to engage with government, we want to engage with local authorities, with contractors, with SMEs, with small data companies, with massive internet companies potentially, depending on where these challenges arise. But we strongly believe that the benefits are going to be greater than the sum of their parts, and bringing those different perspectives in will help those projects to deliver. We're a global company, so one of the key advantages for us is that we can exchange that information, that learning across the world, our global operations. Just as an example of that, talking about melting pavements, well, we need to think about how to design our pavements better so they're more robust and they last longer. We can think about that from first principles if we like, and how to deal with that, or we can go and ask our colleagues in Saudi Arabia or Australia or North Africa or Southern Europe and see how they do it now. So I'm not saying the challenge is exactly the same there, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time when we can go and access this information from around the world more easily. And then, so I work in business development, so from my point of view, one of the great opportunities of this program is to really promote WSP as a really high-value technical consultancy. This whole process will generate innovations and collaboration, but also technical papers, and will hopefully promote us in all the right ways that we want to be seen. So that's it. That's the program. It's a way of capturing all these issues in a manageable way. It's a way of implementing cultural change in our business, and it's a way of making sure that our projects and programs are designed for the future. The ambition and the objective of the scheme are pretty clear. We want to collaborate with other people. We want to reach out. Hopefully at some point in the future we'll be working with some of you in this room. We want to make that cultural change because ultimately that's what will deliver the kind of ongoing improvements and allow us to iterate the scheme. We want to make sure we don't lose any opportunities to innovate right now and to make these changes. And hopefully in doing it this way with our partners and with our clients, whatever the future holds, we will be ready for it.